Your money with America's money maven, Vicki Brackens. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corp., member SIPC. Vicki, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, George. You know, I'm going to start this week with this question. Haven't you done your will yet? Well, there was a study conducted in January by AARP that asked more than 1,000 people whether they had done their estate planning documents in case of death. Most of the U.S. adults age 18 and over have not done a will, but we found out that 81% of those age 72 and older and 58% of baby boomers do in fact have estate planning documents. But far too often we hear of individuals of all stripes in life that have not done their wills yet. And my question is why?
Yeah, why?
Well, okay.
I mean, that's the jargon bell, just in case people forgot that we ring this bell if there's something that we don't understand and we need further clarification. Okay.
Well, I'm going to go back to something my mentor taught me many years ago when I entered the financial planning industry. And that was, it's not what you think, Vicki, but what the customer thinks that matters. So listen to the customer. And here's what we're hearing. So let's have a talk. But before I start that, George, I think I have to say this. This is not specific legal advice. We're talking about possibilities and generalities. You need to seek specific advice to address your personal situation from your personal counsel.
That's specific legal advice.
Specific legal advice.
Thank
That's
you very
correct.
much. Okay.
Okay. But here's the thing, and the number one thing I want everyone to remember, it's not just the will that's important in the estate planning process. We're structuring assets to avoid taxes and to pay heirs efficiently and to maintain privacy so that the things that you have, the things that you've accumulated in life end up truly with the people that you want them to. But here are 10 common estate planning myths, and rather than going through all 10, I think it's time for some homework. We'll put the link on the page.
We'll do that.
On your website.
Sure.
But the number one misconception is that estate planning is just for the wealthy. So when we start to look at why people don't actually have wills, it's because they believe it's something that's only done for people who have massive wealth. This myth comes from the fact that unfortunately in my profession we focus a lot as far as financial advisors and attorneys on the subject of estate tax, which may not be an issue anymore. Did you know that this year the estate tax exclusion, meaning how much you can have as far as assets are concerned that's excluded from taxation, has risen to $11 million. So one of the things that took place in the tax regulation changes this year was the fact that has gone from years ago being under $1 million to now over $11 million. So for most of us, the tax issue is not the issue. What is the issue in estate planning, though, is the fact that you have the issues of incapacity. And your estate planning documentation actually helps you to address the issues of incapacity. What decisions? Yes.
Incapacity, meaning you're unable to speak and represent
yourself.
Speak for yourself and represent yourself.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right. So in the areas of healthcare, if you're incapacitated, then you need someone who can speak for you. It also, as far as your estate planning documentation, takes care of what happens to your children if something happens to you, so that it's not a matter of the court making that decision. And then finally, when the time comes for passing on your estate, the estate planning process deals with how those assets are passed on. So listen, if you're not going to get a will, I'm saying this today, at least do something around your estate planning that will help us live up to our commitment that we made of zero, no more, making sure that we are not in the position of passing nothing or passing things inefficiently to the next generation. And you can do that without a will if you do certain things, particularly through your titling of your assets, your beneficiary clauses, because those things, if done properly, will avoid the probate process. And ring the bell. Okay, all right. So, and the probate process really is about a legal process in which a person's final debts are settled, their property is formally passed on from themselves to their beneficiary and their heirs, and it is a court-supervised process as far as the distribution of estate assets. But the way you actually set up your titling and your beneficiary clauses means that you can actually avoid the probate process. And I'm not saying the probate process is necessarily a bad thing, but it is a public thing.
Right.
And the fact that you may not want all your business out there for everyone to see.
Now, probate happens if you don't have a will.
If you don't, no. Probate happens even when you have a will.
When you have a will, okay.
Okay, but titling, and when you remove things from the estate, they are less likely to be publicly viewed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a list real quickly of the assets that could possibly pass to your heirs without going through probate if you use proper titling and proper beneficiary clauses. And it's a pretty extensive list. Your retirement accounts. Most of us know that your IRAs and your 401ks always have this beneficiary clause, right?
Yeah.
But half the people don't fill them out.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, at one of the places that I work, they're after people to make sure that their beneficiaries are designated.
Exactly. Okay, but if you don't fill out the beneficiary areas, then that account ends up in your estate, which means it ends up in the probate process. Your life insurance proceeds, again, all life insurance contracts have beneficiary clauses, but if you have not filled it out, or if you made the mistake of naming the beneficiary as the estate, then you are going to push that asset into the probate process.
How do you have a life insurance policy? How does your person who signed you up allow you to have a policy without a beneficiary?
Well, you could say, I'll give you that information later.
Okay. All right. So it could just be, I'm not ready to do that right now. There are a number of reasons why people might.
Right, okay.
Because I'm thinking usually that's something that's like right then and there.
Right, and so that's a very good point. So your advisor that you're working with should push you to name a beneficiary, but it's not an absolute. Most of the time, though, they're going to do their best to make sure you name someone.
Okay.
All right. Property held in a living trust. Now, a living trust is a very complicated legal document, so I'm going to come back and just do living trust.
Mm-hmm.
But just understand, when you have property in a living trust, you can avoid the probate process. Funds in payable on death bank accounts. There is a designation that you can place on your bank account called payable on death. In most states, that is available. There are a few states that it's not.
Is it available in New York, for example?
Yeah, it's available. Okay?
Yeah.
And the payable on death provision means that you can name someone so that if something happens to me immediately, that account now becomes theirs. And it's out of the estate planning process, or out of the probate process. Then you have with securities, meaning your 401k, not your 401k, your individual brokerage accounts, your asset management accounts. Similar situation is just called TOD, transfer on death. Savings bonds, payable on death, can also be added there. Co-owned U.S. savings bonds, meaning that they can go from one person to the next because of the co-ownership. Real estate that is subject to a valid transfer on death provision. Again, you have to look at state provisions for that, but you should remember also that your pension plan, if you named a beneficiary, can stay out of the estate plan, can stay out of the probate process. Okay?
Quick question for you. What about people, because I think a lot of the people who might be single might be people who don't do this.
Exactly.
So
okay.
What's your advice to single people?
My advice to single people is put a beneficiary on everything that requires it. Add TOD designations on the accounts that will allow you to do so. And when you change your relationships, meaning you get married or you have a significant other, if you decide you want to change it, these are not irrevocable decisions. So a lot of single people think that if I name someone now, I'm stuck with that forever. You are not. You can change it in the future.
Okay.
But you must make sure that there's someone listed. Okay. Property held in joint tenancy with right of survivorship. You see this a lot of time on your titles for homes. What it means is that we jointly own the property, and if something happens to one of the owners, then it passes on to that individual. Here's the one thing about joint tenancy you should understand, though. We jointly own it. We can make separate decisions concerning it. There's a little bit of a danger in that. Okay, sometimes we're concerned that can someone sell the property from under us? Technically, yes, but most banks will not transact it without both signatures, okay? Property held in community property states with right of survivorship, and it just really allows, basically does the same things. And cars and boats registered with a TOD or transfer on death provision. The point is this. Let's focus on the beneficiary clauses. Let's focus on the titling. Why? Because if you're not going to actually step into the will, and there's a lot of, I'm going to die, it's talking about death only, so utilizing beneficiary.
You think people are afraid because of the idea of death?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay.
That's why
I've heard it a lot.
Okay. I don't want to space this. I don't want to deal with this.
I don't want to deal with this.
But
So let's deal with just the beneficiary and titling.
Right.
It's not a perfect solution, but it is a much better solution than not doing anything. So I'm going to kind of do it like Nike does.
Just
do something, okay?
Do something.
Do something, okay? Just do it. This strategy of utilizing beneficiary and designations and titling is a little bit more comfortable, but also I have to point out that you do lose the ability by doing it this way to provide specific instructions to your heirs, where under trust and wills and so forth you can get more specific, but at least you will have avoided the probate process and given some level of efficiency to your estate planning process. We have all set this goal. What's the goal?
Zero, no more.
Zero, no more. So by protecting and passing your estate in a key planning process, at least we are winning the legacy race and working toward building a better wealth management structure going forward. So if you have more questions or want more information, reach out to me at info@brackensfsn.com. And George, with that in mind, I guess I'll say our plate is full.
And just a reminder, this is not specific legal advice. We're talking about possibilities and generalities. You need to seek specific legal advice to address your personal situation. And now, Vicki, our plate is officially full.
Full, yes, okay.
All right, Vicki Brackens. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corp., member SIPC. And we have production assistance today by Sherry Kilpatrick.